Hello everyone, Vincent here from HDTV Test here. I'm here at HDMI LA's booth at CES 2019 in Las Vegas. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. Hi, Vincent. I'm Brad Bramy, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for HDMI LA, or HDMI Licensing Administrator.
Thank you. At this CES 2019, 8K has been an extremely hot topic, and with that comes HDMI 2.1 support. Can you please explain the various features of HDMI 2.1 and how they can offer some advantages over the existing HDMI 2.0 spec?
Well, sure. Since you mentioned 8K, HDMI 2.1 does support uncompressed 8K 60 and uncompressed 4K 120. But there's also a suite of other features that are already being implemented in some products. Things like eARC, which is Enhanced Audio Return Channel, which supports a higher bit rate audio, as well as object-oriented audio. There's a suite of features that we attribute to like enhanced gaming features. So that would be variable refresh rate, quick media switching, auto low latency mode, and a lot of the TV manufacturers at CES have already announced support for that.
Okay, do we absolutely need a true 48 gigabits per second chip to call a product HDMI 2.1?
Well, HDMI 2.1 supports up to 48 gig bandwidth, so we call that ultra high speed bandwidth, and that goes along with the new cable that comes out of 2.1, which is the ultra high speed cable. So you need that if you want to realize all the benefits of all the features from 2.1, including the ultra high speed bandwidth. So the 8K, as I said, 8K 60, 4K 120 uncompressed, you need that full up to 48 gig bandwidth. Now there are some features, the ones that I mentioned before, where you don't need that bandwidth. So support for dynamic HDR or eARC or variable refresh rate, auto low latency mode, you do not need that. Now some of those features can also be implemented by manufacturers through like a firmware update, if their chip is designed to take that firmware update. So that's why some of those things are being implemented already.
So going by what you said, is there a sort of HDMI 2.1 Lite standard that doesn't actually hit 48 gigabits per second but still exceeds the HDMI 2.0 bandwidth of 18 gigabits per second?
Well, I would never say that there's an HDMI 2.1 Lite. There's a specification and it's called HDMI 2.1, and you can implement whichever features. Some of the features are optional, so you don't have to implement them all. So for example, some of the AVRs are already implementing eARC, and that has really nothing to do with the bandwidth. As I said, that could be a chip that's designed for eARC, or it could be a chip that's designed to be firmware updated to eARC.
So in other words, bandwidth has nothing to do with implementing that sort of feature?
Correct. Bandwidth, as I said, is really for if you need everything. So like the 8K 60, 4K 120, if you want to get like, the 10 or 12-bit color, you've got dynamic HDR, which also has more color requirements. So if you want everything, it's going to be the higher bandwidth. But if it's just something, as I said, a lot of these features are not dependent on the ultra high-speed bandwidth.
Okay, at your booth, you are showing off some prototypes of the ultra high-speed HDMI cable. Can you tell us what are these ultra high-speed HDMI cables?
Well, for HDMI 2.1, there is a new cable spec. It's been a while since a new cable spec came out, and those are called the ultra high-speed HDMI cable, and that will support up to 48 gig. It's also very low in EMI, so it's a great cable. So right now, although the compliance test specification came out in August, the cables aren't covered in that yet, so that will be coming out shortly. So what we're showing here, we have prototypes from 5 different manufacturers covering passive cable, active cable, and active optical cable. So those are prototypes. Obviously they can't go on the market until they pass certification. So these are just prototypes, they're ready to go. The infrastructure is getting in place and people are just waiting for the compliance test spec so they can get certified and released into the market.
What about the Belkin 2.1 cable that has been on the market for some time now? How does that fit into the whole standard and specifications?
Well, first of all, it's not really permitted to call or designate a cable by its specification number. There's no such thing as a 1.4 cable, 2.0 cable, or 2.1 cable. There are official cable names, and those mean something. So there's high speed. We also have a premium high-speed cable, which passes a certain certification program. So it's tested at 18 gigs and has the anti-counterfeit authentication label. And there's the ultra high-speed HDMI cable from the 2.1 spec, which is for 48 gig. That's it. There's no ultra high-speed cables from the 2.1 spec on the market yet.
Is there going to be any certification program in the future for ultra high-speed HDMI cable similar to your premium certified HDMI cable?
We haven't announced anything yet. That's under consideration. There may be in the future. There certainly has been a lot of people asking about it. There is demand for it. But since the compliance test spec hasn't even come out yet for cables, let's just see how that goes. Perhaps some of the attributes of the premium program may be covered in the CTS, we don't know. But people do like the fact that there's auditing built into the premium program. People like the fact that the label really eliminates piracy and counterfeiting. So we haven't made any announcements about that yet.
Going back to displays and also other consumer electronic products at this CES, I think only one major TV manufacturer has managed to implement a full-spec 48 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1 chipset on their televisions. Now, with regards to receivers, do you have any time frame as to when an AV receiver with true HDMI 2.1 full-spec 48 gigabits per second will hit the market?
No, we don't comment on manufacturers' plans. We may not actually know manufacturers' plans when they can implement, and release is up to them. For example, AVRs that only implement eARC, eARC was already in the August release of the compliance specification, so those are already coming to market. But if you want things that also deal with other features, that's going to be down the road a little bit more. But I don't have the manufacturer's information on receivers specifically.
There are many potential TV buyers who are just sitting on the fence, so to speak, waiting for a television that has the full spec 48 gigabits per second, even though they are not going to watch 8K. Now, should they wait for a future proofing that may not actually be needed, or should they just plump for an existing HDMI 2.0 product with the necessary 2.1 feature that they need?
Well, I'm not sure I can advise anybody on when they should buy a TV, other to say that sitting on a fence sounds very painful, and if they want to buy a new TV, there's nothing like the joy of a new TV. If they want 8K, that's great. There's going to be 8K on the market this year. The upsampling is phenomenal, right? Even though there may not be the content, and maybe all the features of the spec may not be implemented in the TV, but you never know. It's really up to the manufacturer. As I said, some of those chips, if they're designed to be firmware upgradable, they can add features over time. But in terms of waiting to get like a full uncompressed 8K 60, 48 gig capable TV, that's going to have to be based on when the manufacturers release that, and really what's in it for the consumer. For example, even like some of the enhanced gaming features like VRR and auto low latency mode, those are actually being implemented in TVs now. And it's not just for the gamers, but it really helps for all viewing, like even streaming, where you're going to have frame rates that come in at different frame rates, and the TV can switch automatically, so there's no black screens coming in. There's going to be no lag in switching devices, or even for when it's one device but changing the frame rates. So it's a more immersive, it's a very quick experience. So I don't really see any reason for people to wait.
Okay, thanks a lot for your time, Brad. It's been an absolute pleasure interviewing you. Thanks again for your time today.
Thanks, Vincent. Appreciate it.